Despite the campaign against diversity, equity, and inclusion, the stories being told here in Boston's Freedom Trail are more diverse than ever. Since taking office, President Donald Trump has been pretty clear about how he would like U.S. history to be told.
Our mission is to defend the legacy of America's founding, the virtue of America's heroes, and the nobility of the American character.
In March, Trump issued an executive order directing federally controlled historic sites to present what he called patriotic history. But here in Boston, home to so many of America's original patriots, visitors are hearing a much different history, going far beyond the stories of Paul Revere, Benjamin Franklin, and Samuel Adams.
The American Revolution, that's sort of like standard Boston 101, yay. And this is really part two, because we did this huge sort of like deal, this backroom deal to make a country where we said, oh yeah, all men are created equal, except, the millions of people that we have enslaved in the country.
Visitors can find tours that focus on Boston's civil rights legacy, on LGBTQ+ figures in history, and on the history of both enslavement and abolition here in Boston.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Boston today.
Most of the sites along the Freedom Trail are not federally controlled, and the private companies and organizations that run the tours here have a very different view than the president. Do you find that there's a need to dial back that conversation about the difficult parts of American history?
No. I think, if anything, I've seen the opposite, where it's become even more important for us to make sure that we know the facts and we know the history, we know an inclusive history, and also that we're having really thoughtful conversations internally about how we can continue to make sure we tell a complex history and that we do it in a way that allows everyone to see themselves in our stories.
We're on the Underground Railroad and Beacon Hill tour. What made you choose this one?
Being from Georgia, I've learned about slavery, but I've just never gotten to learn about it from the lens of a northern state. I want to challenge what I thought was true.
So it's enslaved labor that's picking this cotton, sending it up here as raw material, and these folks are turning it into clothes and making money. So
the demand is there. We see a lot of guests that finish our tour along the Freedom Trail and hear our guides reference the abolitionist movement that comes 100 years later, the women's movement that comes 150 years, 200 years later, and want to learn more about it, and we can say, hey, good news.
The founders of the nation were a multiracial society, with both free and enslaved people a part of it. Black, indigenous, Caribbean, Spanish. And it helps people get away from this idea it's just, 10 guys in white wigs.
Not everybody's happy to hear these stories. Tour companies around Boston say they've increasingly been getting pushback from some of their more conservative guests. But they all say also this is a small minority of the guests who are taking these tours.
People can comment that they wish we would just stick to the main history. And we've put a lot of thought into how we can explain that if we just give you a simplified version of basic events, then you're really not learning much. But by and large, I think to hear those stories brought to life is really meaningful to the vast majority of our guests.